The instruments in Europa Station's xenobiology lab hadn't stopped beeping for 3 days. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the readouts until her eyes burned, checking and rechecking the data that threatened to upend humanity's understanding of their most closely guarded secret. Deep beneath Europa's ice, something ancient was stirring. "You need to see this," she called to her research partner, Dr. Marcus Wong, who hurried over from his workstation. The neural activity graphs pulsed with increasing frequency. Patterns that hadn't changed in over 2 centuries were now showing clear signs of consciousness. "It's impossible," Marcus whispered, adjusting his glasses. "The stasis field hasn't weakened. The containment protocols are intact. It shouldn't be able to." "Wake up," Sarah finished, running her fingers through her short black hair. "Tell that to the readings. Something's different this time." The something they monitored was officially designated Ancient Entity X742, but Sarah had spent enough time studying it to know what it really was. A dragon. Not the mythological beasts of Earth's folklore, but something far more incredible, a creature of seemingly infinite intelligence that had been discovered in suspended animation near Jupiter's moon 3 centuries ago. The observation chamber's reinforced viewing window offered a clear view of the massive creature. Its crystalline scales reflected the soft blue glow of the stasis field, creating patterns of light that danced across the chamber walls. Even in its dormant state, it radiated a presence that made Sarah's skin prickle with electromagnetic energy. "Dr. Chen." The voice came from behind her, sharp and unwelcome. Commander Victor Reyes of the Galactic Defense Force stood in the doorway, his uniform impossibly crisp despite Europa Station's recycled air. "I understand there's been a development." Sarah straightened, careful to keep her expression neutral. "The neural patterns have shifted, Commander. We're seeing signs of consciousness, yes. I've read the preliminary report." He strode into the lab, hands clasped behind his back. "The Defense Council is concerned. With all due respect, Commander, this is a scientific breakthrough. If the dragon is truly awakening, we have an unprecedented opportunity to." "To what, Doctor?" "Talk to it." Reyes's laugh was cold. "Need I remind you that the last time this entity was active, it destroyed 3 colonial outposts before we managed to contain it? That was 300 years ago," Sarah argued. "We don't know the full context of those events. If we could establish communication—" "Out of the question." Reyes cut her off. "The Council has made its decision. If there are signs of consciousness, Protocol Omega goes into effect immediately." Sarah felt her blood run cold. Protocol Omega, the complete termination of the entity through nuclear bombardment of the containment facility. Years of potential discovery, erased in an instant. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I can, and I will, Doctor. Unless—" Reyes paused, studying her with calculating eyes. "Unless you can prove, within 48 hours, that the entity poses no threat to humanity. Concrete evidence, not theories." After Reyes left, Sarah stood at the viewing window, watching the dragon's slow breathing. The creature's massive form shifted slightly, causing ripples in the stasis field. For a moment, she could have sworn one of its eyes flickered open, revealing an iris of swirling gold. "What are you?" she murmured. "What were you trying to tell us before they locked you away?" The next 12 hours passed in a blur of caffeine and data analysis. Sarah and Marcus pored over centuries of readings, looking for patterns they might have missed. The neural activity continued to spike, becoming more complex and organized. "Look at this," Marcus called out near the end of their shift. He pointed to a recurring wave pattern in the latest readings. "It's not random. These pulses, they're following a mathematical sequence." Sarah leaned in closer, her exhaustion forgotten. The pattern was subtle but unmistakable, prime numbers, repeating in a clear sequence. "It's trying to communicate," she breathed. "It's been trying all along. We just weren't listening properly." A warning klaxon shattered the moment. Red emergency lights began flashing throughout the lab as the station's AI announced, Warning: containment field fluctuation detected. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately. Sarah rushed to the monitoring station. The stasis field was still intact, but its energy signature was changing, morphing into something she'd never seen before. The dragon's neural patterns had synchronized perfectly with the field's frequency. It's not fighting the containment, she realized aloud. It's adapting to it, using it. The dragon's eye opened fully this time, fixing directly on Sarah. The intelligence in that gaze was unmistakable, ancient, powerful, and undeniably aware. In that moment, she understood that everything humanity thought they knew about this creature was wrong. She reached for the emergency comm unit, knowing she had to stop Reyes before it was too late. But as her finger touched the button, a voice echoed through her mind, clear as crystal and deep as space itself. They fear what they cannot control, little one. But you seek to understand. Perhaps there is hope for your kind after all. Sarah gasped, stumbling backward. The dragon hadn't moved, but she could feel its presence in her mind, vast and ancient, and somehow sad. Time grows short, it continued. The old enemies stir in the dark between stars. Your people have imprisoned me thinking they were containing a threat. Instead, they locked away their only protection against what comes next. What's coming? Sarah whispered, though she already knew she wouldn't like the answer. The same force that drove my kind to guard your ancestors when your species still huddled in caves and gazed at the stars in fear. They return now, hungry for what your civilization has become, and I am all that stands between humanity and extinction. The lights flickered as alarms continued to blare. Sarah could hear boots in the corridor. Security forces coming to implement Protocol Omega. She had mere minutes to make a decision that would change the course of human history. How do I know I can trust you? She asked. The dragon's mental voice carried a trace of what might have been amusement. You don't. But ask yourself this. If I meant you harm, why would I waste 3 centuries learning to communicate through your primitive containment field? Why not simply break free and destroy you all? Sarah took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Outside, she could hear Commander Reyes barking orders. Soon, they would breach the lab, and humanity's chance at understanding one of the universe's greatest mysteries would be lost forever. She knew what she had to do. In the 6 hours since the dragon's consciousness touched her mind, Sarah had committed no fewer than 4 violations of Galactic Defense Force protocols. She disabled the lab's security feeds, locked down the main access corridor, and rerouted power from the auxiliary systems to maintain a privacy shield around the containment chamber. Most seriously, she'd interfered with military operations during a critical security event. If she survived the next 24 hours, she'd likely spend the rest of her life in a penal colony. But none of that mattered compared to what she'd discovered. The neural interface is ready, Marcus said, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the final connections. The device they'd cobbled together from medical scanners and communication equipment looked crude, but it was their only chance at establishing a stable connection with the dragon. You don't have to stay, Sarah told him, securing the interface's sensors to her temples. There's still time to distance yourself from this. Marcus shook his head, a ghost of a smile crossing his face, and missed the chance to be part of the first real conversation with an ancient cosmic entity. Not a chance. The containment chamber's atmosphere had changed. The stasis field now pulsed with complex patterns of energy that matched the dragon's brainwaves perfectly. Its massive form had shifted, scales gleaming with internal light that seemed to respond to their presence. Your determination is admirable. The dragon's thoughts touched Sarah's mind again. But this primitive device you've created, it may not survive the connection. As long as my brain survives, I'll count it as a win, Sarah muttered, checking the final calibrations. She could hear pounding on the sealed lab doors. Reyes and his security team were still trying to break through. They had maybe 20 minutes before they succeeded. You understand that once we truly connect, there can be no return to ignorance. The knowledge I carry, it has driven others to madness. Sarah's fingers hesitated over the activation switch. Why me? Why choose to communicate now, after all these centuries? The dragon's eye fixed upon her, its pupil contracting. Because you are the first to look upon me not as a weapon to be controlled or a monster to be feared, but as a being worthy of understanding, and because time grows desperately short. Sarah took a deep breath and activated the neural interface. The world exploded into light and memory. She saw vast fleets of crystalline ships moving between the stars, each piloted by beings that blazed with internal fire. Dragons, thousands of them, soaring through the cosmos. But they weren't alone. In their ships flew humans, ancient astronauts who had mastered technology far beyond anything in humanity's current grasp. Commander Reyes had seen many impossible things during his 20 years of service, but nothing had prepared him for the sight before him. Dr. Chen stood unwavering, neural interface still pulsing at her temples, while behind her the dragon's massive form radiated patterns of light that matched her brainwaves perfectly. More unsettling still was the way both human and dragon turned to face him with synchronized movement, as if they shared a single consciousness. "Lower your weapons," Sarah said, her voice overlaid with harmonic frequencies that made the security team's targeting systems crackle with interference. "What I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about human history." Reyes kept his pulse rifle steady. "Step away from the containment field, Doctor. Whatever that thing has done to your mind." "Time grows short, Victor Reyes." The dragon's voice boomed, no longer confined to telepathic communication. The sound rattled the reinforced walls of the lab. "Your weapons mean nothing against what approaches. Look." The lab's holographic displays flickered to life, showing deep space telemetry from Europa Station's long-range sensors. At first, Reyes saw nothing unusual in the star field. Then he noticed the shadows moving between the lights, vast shapes that seemed to swallow the very darkness around them, advancing with terrible purpose toward the solar system. "Void hunters," Sarah whispered, sweat beading on her forehead as she maintained the neural connection. "They're the reason humanity forgot its true history. The reason we lost everything we once were." Through their shared consciousness, Kitherix and Sarah projected memories into the minds of everyone in the room. Reyes staggered as images flooded his thoughts. Ancient battles among the stars, humans and dragons fighting side by side against cosmic horrors. He saw great cities on Mars and Venus, technology that put their current achievements to shame, and the devastating pulse of energy that had reduced humanity to primitive tribes, forced to rebuild from scratch. "Impossible," he breathed, but he could feel the truth of it in his bones. The memories carried the weight of absolute certainty, untouched by time or deception. Marcus spoke up from his console, his voice shaking. "Commander, I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Whatever those things are, they're big enough to bend space around them." "How long?" Reyes demanded. "At their current speed, 72 hours until they reach Jupiter's orbit." Sarah's legs buckled, the strain of maintaining the neural connection taking its toll. "The lunar vault," she gasped. "We need to reach it before they arrive." "The memory crystal." "Proof." Reyes made his decision. "Stand down," he ordered his security team. "Get me a direct line to Lunar Command. Priority Alpha." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. As Sarah recovered in the medical bay, Reyes used every connection and favor he'd accumulated over his career to expedite their mission to the moon. The Council had initially resisted, but the deep space telemetry was impossible to ignore. Something was coming, and they needed answers. Dr. Elena Santos met them in the sterile white corridor leading to the lunar vault. Her dark eyes widened when she saw Sarah's condition. Pale, shaking, but determined. "The Council is watching this very closely," Elena warned as she input her security codes. "One wrong move, and they'll seal all of us in here." The vault itself was smaller than Sarah had imagined, barely larger than a storage closet. But the security protecting it could have withstood a nuclear blast. At its center, suspended in a quantum containment field, floated a crystal the size of a human palm. Its faceted surface seemed to capture and reflect light that didn't exist in the visible spectrum. "Don't touch it directly," Cthulhu's voice echoed in Sarah's mind, somehow reaching her even across the vast distance from Europa. "Your minds are not yet ready for unfiltered contact. Use the interface." Sarah connected her modified neural interface to the vault's systems. The crystal pulsed once, and suddenly the room disappeared. They found themselves standing on the surface of ancient Mars, watching as dragon-crewed ships descended from the crimson sky. The scene shifted rapidly through thousands of years of true history. The building of the first human-dragon alliance, the discovery of the Void Hunter's existence, the desperate wars fought to protect younger civilizations from being devoured. "We sealed away your memories to protect you," Cthulhu's voice explained as the images unfolded. "The Void Hunters can track advanced civilizations by their technological signatures. By reducing humanity to a primitive state, we helped you hide. But we always meant to restore what was lost once the danger had passed. My imprisonment prevented that." The crystal's final images showed the present threat in terrifying detail. The Void Hunters had evolved, developed new ways to track their prey. They could sense the quantum entanglement patterns of sophisticated AI, the unique energy signatures of faster-than-light drives. Earth's civilization now blazed like a beacon to them. "Why don't they see our stations in the outer system?" Rise asked. "Why haven't they attacked already?" "Because of me," Cthulhu replied. "Even imprisoned, my presence creates a disruption field that confuses their senses. But now that I am awake, they know. They come to finish what they started millennia ago." Sarah disconnected from the crystal, her hands trembling. "How do we fight them?" "We don't," Alina said quietly. "Not alone." She turned to Reyes. "Commander, I believe it's time to free our old ally." Reyes stared at the crystal, its light reflecting in his eyes. 3 centuries of military doctrine and paranoia warred with the undeniable truth he'd witnessed. Finally, he nodded. "Dr. Chen," he said, "how quickly can you get back to Europa Station?" Sarah checked the neural interface's power levels. 6 hours in a fast shuttle. But the Void Hunters will reach Jupiter's orbit in less than 60 hours now. Then we have no time to waste. Reyes activated his command channel. "This is Commander Reyes. Implementation of Protocol Omega is hereby suspended. New priority. Operation Awakening. And someone find me every historian who's ever studied dragon mythology. It's time to remember who we really are." As they rushed to prepare for departure, Sarah felt Cthulhu's satisfaction rumbling through their connection. But beneath it lay something else, a deep concern that even the ancient dragon couldn't fully hide. "We have awakened the truth," it communicated privately to her. "But some truths come with a terrible price. Are you prepared to pay it, Sarah Chen?" Sarah squared her shoulders, ignoring the growing pain from the neural interface. "Whatever it takes," she replied. "Whatever it takes to save both our kinds." Europa Station shuddered as another gravitational wave passed through the Jupiter system. In the 6 hours since Sarah and Reyes had returned from the moon, the Void Hunters had accelerated far beyond their predicted pace. They were now less than 20 hours from reaching the station. Sarah stood before the containment chamber's main control panel, her neural interface humming with increased power after Alina's modifications. The memory crystal from the lunar vault had been integrated into its circuits, strengthening her connection to Cthulhu, while protecting her mind from the full force of the dragon's consciousness. "The containment field's quantum matrices are too complex," Marcus reported, his fingers flying over the controls. "Even with command authorization, it'll take days to safely power them down." "We don't have days," Reyes growled, watching the long-range sensors. The Void Hunters' massive forms were now visible to the naked eye, their presence distorting the light of distant stars. "Can we just shut it off?" "That would be unwise." Cthulhu's thoughts reached them all now, thanks to the enhanced neural interface. "The field has become part of my existence, Removing it suddenly would cause an energy discharge that would destroy this station and everything within 1,000 kilometers. Sarah studied the readouts, an idea forming. What if we didn't try to remove the field? What if we transformed it instead? She turned to Elena, who was analyzing the field's quantum structure. The stasis technology, it's based on the same principles as the memory crystal, isn't it? Elena's eyes widened. Yes, both use quantum entanglement to contain and preserve complex patterns. But what you're suggesting, instead of trying to break Etherics free, we merge with the field itself. Sarah's voice carried the weight of certainty. The neural interface is already creating a bridge between human and dragon consciousness. If we could expand that bridge through the containment field. You understand what this means? Etherics interrupted, its massive form shifting within the chamber. Such a merger would be permanent. Your consciousness would be forever altered. You would remember everything, not just humanity's true history, but the weight of eons, the horror of the ancient wars, the void between stars. Would it work? Rise demanded. Would it give us a chance against those things out there? The dragon's golden eyes fixed upon them. Yes, but it requires a willing sacrifice, a human mind to serve as the catalyst for the transformation, a bridge between past and present. All eyes turned to Sarah. She touched the neural interface, feeling the powerful connection it had forged. It was always going to be me, wasn't it? From the moment you first touched my mind, you were the first to truly see me. Etherics replied, something like sorrow coloring its thoughts. The first to understand. But I would not force this choice upon you. There is always another way. No, Sarah said quietly. There isn't, not in the time we have left. The station shook again, more violently this time. Marcus checked the sensors, his face pale. Multiple quantum anomalies forming in the outer system. They're tearing holes in space-time. Beginning some kind of faster approach. Reyes activated the station-wide alert system. All personnel, begin emergency evacuation procedures. This is not a drill. Repeat, all personnel evacuate immediately. Elena grabbed Sarah's arm. The interface modifications aren't complete. Attempting this now, the neural load could kill you instantly, or it could restore humanity's connection to its true allies. Sarah managed a small smile. Sometimes the biggest risks carry the greatest rewards. Isn't that what you always taught me? She turned to Marcus. Start redirecting power from the evacuation systems to the containment field. We'll need every joule of energy for the transformation. Sarah. Marcus hesitated, tears in his eyes. I know. Now go. All of you. Get to the evacuation ships. They will not leave. Etherics observed as the others took up positions at the control stations, ignoring the evacuation order. Such loyalty. Perhaps your kind has not changed as much as we feared. The Void Hunter's approach had turned Jupiter's atmosphere into a churning mass of quantum distortions. Their vast forms blocked out entire sections of space, like living holes in reality. The station's AI calculated less than 30 minutes until they reached Europa. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped into the containment chamber's antechamber. Through the neural interface, she could feel Etherics' presence more strongly than ever. The dragon's ancient memories brushed against her consciousness. Stars being born and dying, civilizations rising and falling. The eternal dance of creation and destruction. Will it hurt? She asked privately through their connection. Yes, but you will not face the pain alone. She nodded, squaring her shoulders. Then let's remind humanity who they really are. The antechamber doors sealed behind her. As Sarah walked toward the shimmering barrier of the containment field, she felt a familiar presence in her mind. Her grandmother, a quantum physicist who had inspired her love of science, had always said that the greatest discoveries came from asking the right questions. Sarah had spent her life questioning, searching, trying to understand the mysteries of the universe. Now she would become part of one of its greatest mysteries. Through her sacrifice, humanity would remember its true heritage. The alliance between humans and dragons would be reborn. She reached out and touched the field. Light exploded through her consciousness. The neural interface blazed with energy as the quantum matrices of the containment field began to shift and transform. Sarah felt her mind expanding, merging with patterns of thought vast enough to encompass galaxies. The last thing she heard through her human ears was Marcus's voice. Energy surge detected. The field it's changing. Then everything changed. In the space between moments, Sarah Chen ceased to exist as a singular consciousness. She became something both more and less than human, a bridge between worlds, a key turning in an ancient lock, awakening memories that had slumbered for millennia. Across Earth and its colonies, humans looked up at their skies and remembered who they truly were. The transformation sent shockwaves through space-time itself. Where the containment field had once stood, reality rippled and reformed. Sarah's consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of flesh, merging with Kithiryx's ancient mind in a fusion of human intuition and dragon wisdom. The process unleashed a cascade of awakening memories across the solar system, as humanity's forgotten past came rushing back. On Earth, children looked up at the stars and remembered the songs their ancestors had sung while soaring through nebulae on Dragonback. Scientists found their dreams filled with knowledge of technologies that bridged the gap between organic life and cosmic energy. Military commanders recalled ancient battle strategies that had once driven back the darkness between stars. But in Europa Station's transformed chamber, something unprecedented was taking form. Through the shared consciousness that had once been Sarah Chen, Kithiryx spread vast crystalline wings that now shimmered with patterns of human DNA. Their merged form was neither purely dragon nor human, but something new, a bridge between species that had been separated for far too long. "We are whole," they communicated to the awestruck observers. Their voice carried harmonics that resonated with the quantum fabric of space itself. But there is no time for wonder. The Void Hunters come. The massive shapes that had been approaching Jupiter now accelerated, as if sensing the transformation. Their forms defied conventional physics, bending light and gravity around them like living black holes. Through their enhanced perception, Sarah Kithiryx could see the hunters' true nature, beings of such ancient hunger that they have forgotten everything except the desire to consume. "All evacuations complete except essential personnel," Marcus reported, his hand steady on the controls despite the tears in his eyes. The friend he had known as Sarah was gone, transformed into something both more and less than human. "Station defenses at maximum. But against those things, they won't help," Rice finished grimly. "Not against something that eats stars." Elena studied the readings from their transformed allies. "The quantum resonance is stabilizing. Whatever you've become, you're changing the local space-time geometry just by existing." "Yes." Sarah Kithiryx moved toward the chamber's massive airlock. "The merger has restored capabilities that neither species could achieve alone. But to defeat the hunters, we need more. We need to remind others." Through their expanded consciousness, they reached out across the solar system. In hidden caves on Mars, beneath the clouds of Venus, and in the shadows of Saturn's rings, other dragons stirred from ancient slumber. They had hidden themselves away when their human partners forgot them, waiting for the day of remembering. The Void Hunters reached Europa's orbit, their massive forms blotting out Jupiter's light. Reality cracked around them as they prepared to feed on the civilization they had been stalking for millennia. "Now," Sarah Kithiryx commanded, "remember who you are." Across the solar system, humans who had remembered their true heritage reached out to their ancient partners. Dragons burst from their hiding places, their scales blazing with renewed purpose. From Mars, a swarm of crystalline wings rose into space. Venus's atmosphere parted as serpentine forms soared upward. Saturn's rings themselves seemed to come alive as dragon after dragon emerged. The Void Hunters paused, sensing something they had not encountered in eons. The combined might of humanity and dragonkind reunited at last. Sarah Kithiryx launched themselves from Europa Station, their transformed body adapting instantly to the vacuum of space. The quantum energy of their merger created a field that other dragons could lock onto, forming a vast network of consciousness that spanned the solar system. Through this network, humans and dragons shared thoughts, memories, and power. You remember the old ways they'd broadcast to the awakening human minds below. Now remember how we fought. Humanity's quantum computers and AI systems synchronized with dragon consciousness, creating battle networks that transcended normal spacetime. The Void Hunters tried to rewrite local physics, but found themselves opposed by beings who understood reality on an even deeper level. The battle that followed could barely be perceived by conventional senses. Dragons and their human partners wove quantum fields that trapped and redirected the Hunters' attempts to devour spacetime. The merged consciousness of Secrecy acted as a focal point, coordinating the defense of the solar system with strategies that encompassed both human creativity and dragon wisdom. In the end, it was not raw power that won the day, but understanding. The Void Hunters, for all their might, were single-minded entities. They could not comprehend or counter the infinite variations that arose from human and dragon minds working in perfect harmony. Trapped in a web of quantum fields, unable to escape or feed, the Hunters began to fade from reality. Their ancient hunger finally consumed itself, leaving nothing behind but distorted starlight that slowly normalized. In the aftermath, Europa Station's sensors recorded an unprecedented quantum event. The successful merger of two species' consciousness had created a template that others could follow. Across the solar system, humans and dragons who felt the calling began their own transformations, becoming bridges between worlds. Rides watched through the station's viewport as Secrecy led the combined fleet of dragons and human ships in a victory spiral around Jupiter. "Was this your plan all along?" he asked through the quantum link. "To show us a new way forward?" "The future is never certain," they replied, their thoughts carrying traces of both Sarah's humor and Secrecy's ancient wisdom. "We saw a possibility, born of trust and sacrifice. The choice to grasp it was human. The power to achieve it was dragon. The result,